Hey guys, welcome back to the Prehistoric Life podcast. And today we have another interview. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. So I'm Blandine. I am based in Bonn, Germany. I'm a self-employed fossil preparator, paleontologist, and I also work in preventive conservation and collection management.
If you want to check out their content, here's their Instagram account. Please go check it out. A lot of amazing content there.
Thank
All
you.
right. So the first question I start off any interview with is the one question that we are all asked as paleontologists and kids. What
Mhm.
is your favorite dinosaur?
I will show you. It's the Psittacosaur.
It's such a beautiful dinosaur.
It's so silly. So this dinosaur I didn't know until I would say 2017. um, when I got to um, do my first preparation job, like get my first experience in preparation. I got a grant to go study in Russia and Siberia, more specifically at the university, the Tomsk State University. And when I arrived there, so I was sold onto the, hey, do you want to study dinosaurs? You can go there. So I applied, I went there, and I was given a jacket and was told, hey, please prepare this stuff. It's dinosaur material. And I asked, yeah, but nice, but what dinosaur? And my supervisor told me Psittacosaurus. And I thought, what, what is that? So I Googled it, and then I saw how lame they looked. I really thought like I'm working on a parrot, like a dog-sized parrot. Um,
Much.
but I grew so fond of preparation while working on the bones and getting really close to the material and working on juvenile remains and stuff that slowly they grew on me and they became my favorite dinosaurs. Like I find them so quirky, so cute, and the Siberian one, they have those crazy horns that are much bigger than
Big cheek
in the
horn.
other psittacosaurs. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's my favorite silly little dinosaur.
Those are very beautiful creatures,
Yeah.
and they're surprisingly spread out in like
All
species.
across Asia. And yeah, you have them in China, Mongolia, Russia, and so many species. Yes.
They hit Europe and just Europe and Asia.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
speaking of fossil preparation, what is it that you do?
As a fossil preparator, so I do preparation and restoration. So I will touch on the restoration first because it's the easiest to describe. Restoration is just fossils have been already prepared in a good way or not, and people bring them to me to make cosmetic restoration. They just want the pieces to look good. So then you see the pieces more as works of art. So you're just fixing the cracks, fixing the color, removing the previous consolidants. Or you can also do restoration for historical and scientific collections. And then it's about stabilizing the pieces and making sure they can remain on the shelves for many more years to go. So this is the restoration part. Then for the preparation, what I will do is that I will go on the field and dig the fossils myself with the team. So this is part of preparation already. As soon as you start digging the bones out, that's the beginning of the work. So on the site, you will stabilize the material, and then you prepare plaster jackets, and you end up having massive blocks full of stone. And there, like I pointed out with arrows, where the bones start or end, and little by little, I will just remove the surrounding matrix and expose the bones. And then depending on how they are spread out or articulated or not, either I will take them out of the jacket completely or I will leave them in articulation in the jacket. So yeah, that's about it. I can also, for a next step, but this is a bit destructive, so we don't do that on scientifically relevant pieces, I would say, or at least I would not advise it, but the mounting process, where it is like you take all the bones out and then you rebuild the skeleton out of it. Yeah. So that's yeah.
For articulation within the matrix, do you just kind of how do I say this? Like, I don't want to say just cut it in half, but like just reveal all of it and then just like leave it?
Yeah, so you will remove the surrounding matrix as much as you can, or you leave as much as you want if you have other elements of context in it, or if it helps you make sure that the piece remains stable over time. Because there are some things that you cannot take out of the matrix. And when the elements are articulated, it makes sense. I got an example here. So there's a piece I prepared for a German museum, the Stiftung Friedenstein in Gotha. And this is material that's found in very brittle clay. So the clay is falling apart very easily. The preservation is really bad. And there, what I found are articulated phalanges. But this side, as an example, you can't tell it's phalanges. It's just like crushed material all the way. On the other side, there, this one is more clearly a phalange.
You can tell what it is a lot more.
This one as well. So you see 1, 2, 3. And so you keep the toes all together. And thanks to that, you know that on the other side are phalanges as well. So my decision as a preparator was like, okay, I want to keep the context, because if you would separate them, they would not tell a story anymore. We want to keep the context for research and for display to the public. So I decided to keep the piece of matrix that's tying them together. I did not change how they are articulated. I kept them on site, and I just grinded the bottom
so of
so like this, it can just be presented like that. So then to the public, if you just explain those are articulated phalanges, they can read it. But also for scientists, you keep the original orientation, so they know that the fossils were not so disturbed when they got deposited, and that the damage happened later on.
All right.
Yeah, sorry, I get like really into it.
That's why you're here. That's what people want to see.
Nerdy preparation stuff. Yeah. Oh, and another job as a preparator is making sure, as I said, that the pieces remain stable with time, and it goes with offering proper storage methods and materials. So here I just made a support that's made out of ether foam that's shock absorbing and not releasing gases, and Tyvek, that's also like another material that's not dangerous for the and you just leave it like that, and it can be displayed like this, or you just can store it in the collections, because off-gassing is a big problem in the materials we use in collections, and sometimes the fossils decay much faster because of that. So yeah,
fossil decay is not a good thing if you're trying to preserve them.
Yeah.
So what is your favorite part of what you do? Out of everything you do?
I always say something silly. So when I work on collection inventory, which happens from time to time. I love putting the things in boxes. I love categorizing the items and then seeing the differences from one fossil to another. It's super informative to have the items in your hands. But then, no, as a preparator, what I love is the diversity of fossils that I get to see and that I get to work on. It's both a scientific and artistic endeavor. You have to educate yourself on the material, on the minerals, on the rocks that you're working on, to make sure you're using the right tools and the right materials. And then on the other end, you have this sculpting, color matching, which are purely artistic. And it's a combination of both that's so fulfilling to me, because I get to be creative while also keeping informing myself on the specimens I'm working on, and also contributing to research or to education as a whole when I'm working on pieces that are going to be displayed to the public. It's, getting to understand the fossils in their entirety, like learning about the animals, but also how they got preserved and how can we make them tell a story to the visitor in a museum. So
Telling the
that's
story of the animal that is preserved. I mean, that's
you bring it back to life. That's
a bit of a story too.
That's really nice. And I don't have a day when I'm bored, because I'm doing so many different things on so many different fossils. It changes all the time. You can't get bored. Yeah, that's a challenging job, but I really like it.
So, I mean, out of all of that, how did you come to get to where you are?
So, I started with a bachelor's degree in geology. So it was just general geology. The first year was with mathematics, physics, chemistry. That was really hard for me to overcome. It took me 3 years to get over the maths. But I think it's a pattern in paleontologists. Bachelor was about geology. We could not really specialize on paleontology, but during my second year, I got extremely lucky when there was this offer for a mobility grant to go to Russia to study dinosaurs or mammoths if we wanted. This program was only for master's students originally, but nobody applied. So I could go already during my bachelor's, which was an incredible luck for me. Because where I was, there was no vertebrate paleontology program. I'm French, I would have had to move to Paris or cities in the south of France to specialize in that, and I could not afford it. So this grant was a massive luck for me. And so with that, I could study more about taphonomy, writing papers, fossil preparation. I did a lot of fossil preparation there. And then field work as well. So going on excursions and stuff. So that's how I could start to specialize on paleo. The year after, for the end of my bachelor, I wrote my bachelor thesis about Devonian fish. And the material had not been prepared. So I met the future supervisor and he was like, by the way, I hope you know a bit about preparation because the material isn't prepared. And it was the second time when I ended up doing preparation. It was not what I thought I would be doing, but I got to do it and I was so into it. That was so nice. I prepared 30 fish over 1 month and a half or something like that.
Wow.
So doing the research, I would prepare them the whole day, do my experiments at the lab, and then at night just write like the draft for the paper. So that was also a way to specialize myself on vertebrate paleontology. And then for my master's degree, I did a paleontology master's at the University of Lille, where I did my bachelor's as well. And there you could specialize a bit more. But to me, the program was a bit too general, and I really wanted to become a vertebrate paleontologist. So for the second year, I got another mobility grant, and I moved to Germany to do my first semester on vertebrate paleontology, and then the second semester write my master's thesis on dinosaurs. And so the topic was paleohistology and taphonomy and diagenesis. So I studied material from the Natalie Quarry in Utah and thin sections of the green bones. And my job there was to find out why the material from dinosaurs there was green. So one of the sauropods is on display at the museum in Los Angeles, and they made the headlines by showing the green dinosaur. And so this one was like quite impressive. It's a showpiece, and the question is, why did it become green? So a very specific clay mineral formed in the bones as a result of degradation of ash falls from the time there were many eruptions in the area. The only question we could not solve was, why didn't it form in other areas that were as well covered by volcanic ashes? So we got to know which mineral formed, but why did it form only there is still an unresolved question. So it was a lot of microanalysis, spending a lot of time checking the sections on the microscope and stuff, learning how to write papers, how to do research. And so, yes. And during that year, I met Dutch taxidermist and dino expert Art Walen.
Maybe.
Yeah, no, but he was so at first he was in his career famous for being able to mount big animals like elephants, whales. So whenever a big sized animal would die in Europe, he would be called to mount it. And one day a friend of his
the big animal mounting guy. That's a
yeah. And one day a museum director, a friend of his, told him, "Hey, I got a dinosaur to build. Could you do that?" And he said, "Well, it doesn't seem so different from whales. I think I can do it." And he started like this, and then he ended up being really well known in Europe and doing it everywhere. And I had met him during my last year of masters, and at some point he offered me to work with him. And I thought, okay, let's try. And thanks to him, I got to learn how to build, dismantle exhibitions, how to mount specimens. And first specimen I ever mounted was a Diplodocus, but real material, a real entire skeleton. That was a massive first experience to me. That was so incredible.
First task, this behemoth.
Yeah. That was the thing. I thought, what do you mean? I've never welded anything in my life. And it's just, he is so much trusting of the young people, so willing to share everything he knows. And he told me a lot, and he introduced me to a lot of preparators in Europe with whom I could exchange and from which I could learn a lot. So one day he told me, "Oh, there is this colleague of mine. She's really good on restoring fossils from Bavaria. Maybe you should spend some time with her. She's good at color matching." Her name is Gail Summer. She's a very sweet lady, and over 10 days she taught me how to color match and how to fix fossils that are preserved in limestone. And so I'm very grateful to people like them who are just willing to share with the young people who want to learn. And so that's how slowly I built my experience as a fossil preparator further than what I did during my bachelor's. And then eventually, as I was not finding jobs so easily in paleontology, I got into preventive conservation. And so how to rearrange collections, how to make sure everything is preserved and stored in the right way. I did a few collection moves. So yeah, from this experience in preventive conservation, I learned a lot as well, because in the US, fossil preparation and museum collection storage is well established, well organized, and the best practices are shared. I mean, what happens in art museums is easily transferred onto paleo, with some fancy labs in the US who decided to just be on top of the things and do it well. While in Europe, there is a massive gap between storage conditions in art museums and what happens with paleontology and geology. Sometimes people are so not aware of what should not be done in collections. And then a few years later, they are like, oh, everything fell apart. How did it happen? And so I'm happy for a while I could work in art museums in France, because I was working with art restorators and I learned from them also which materials and which tools I should or should not use in my line of work. And so I'm trying to bring this to paleontology, as like an extra thing to make sure that the collections are preserved for a very long time. And so I did a bit of a mix of preparation and preventive conservation. And since last year, I've been doing preparation full time only, because I got this very nice agreement with the Stiftung Friedenstein in Gotha. And I'm working on this scientific project with the plaster jacket I showed earlier. And this is a 1 year long project. So I'm working on that. And in between, I do a few other restoration projects for other customers.
Smaller
so,
collections and other museums. So that's wow. Fossil restoration fossil restoration and preparation has got to be. Does it ever get really stressful? Are you ever just like shaking while doing it?
Yeah. So that's the point. I think absolutely everybody can relate. When I started working on those dinosaur bones, I was so scared of doing anything wrong, and I spent hours and hours being so slow working on my first bone. And one day I just slipped and I broke it, and I burst in tears immediately, and I was trying to not cry out loud, and I was trying to keep it together as much as I could. But then my supervisor came over and he was like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "Am I going to get my visa revoked? Am I going to be sent back to France?" There's a level of panic I had. I was like, I just broke a dinosaur bone. That's so bad. And it was like, no, that's no big deal. Like, I will go get the super glue and we just glue it back on, like just use cyanoacrylate and you're fine. And he just glued it back, gave it back to me, and he was like, here you go. So that was my first time breaking a bone. That was, and now I've been teaching a few friends of mine or people I've got to know in the field how to prepare. And sometimes I'm here when this very first experience happens to them. And I'm the one who's like, no big deal, we are going to fix it. Yeah. Well, it depends on the pieces you're working on. So here, one bone, there is so much information you can get from it. When it's one big piece, you just glue it back, you're not altering the shape. If you would just give a big scratch mark into a shrimp and damage the antennas, the legs, the shell, everything, then it's a bigger mistake. But then you should not have been given the specimen in the first place. It's a really gradual process. Then freaky accidents happen sometimes with the pieces. I don't know, like one day ribs are the worst types of fossils ever when it comes to big animals. So dinosaur ribs are a nightmare because they are so heavy yet so thin that they will break all the time. No matter how good you prepared them, they will break. You look at them, they break. And one day I was just done fixing one of them that had broken on the mount, and I was leaving it to dry. And my boss was not aware that I was just done fixing it for the 1000th time. And he just showed up in the workshop and he was like, "Oh, we forgot to put this one on the mount." And he took the rib, took it in an upright position, which is the best to not make it break, but the glue had not set. So it started breaking, but pulling all the other pieces with it. And so I saw it just falling by chunks and ending up like smashing piece by piece on the floor.
Like right in front of you?
Yeah. And at that moment, you're like, absolute shock. Then you're like, this one is going to take a longer time to fix. But as I said, earlier, a piece that ends up on a mount, if the mount has not been built by using 3D scans of all of the bones before setting them on it, there is going to be so much damage through the mounting process that this specimen is kind of lost to science. If one day someone would tell me, "Oh, I'm doing research on dinosaur ribs and I'm describing the ones that are on mounts in museums," I would say, "Are you crazy? You don't even know what's real, what's not." So that's where you're like, okay, it's really bad for the specimen. It should not happen. He should have asked me, why was that rib here before taking it in his hands? But yeah, it's
mistakes were made.
Fixable. Yeah.
Were made. It happens. We're all human.
Yeah.
I guess with preparation, it also depends on like species and type of bone.
Mm-hmm.
So, like pterosaur bones, I would assume, are a lot more brittle than like a sauropod femur.
Yeah, because they are hollow. Yeah, it's much more fragile. I got an example of fossil here that's really hard to fix. So this is the jaw of a proto-giraffe, and the matrix is just coal, and it's just so brittle, you just can take it apart like this. And as an example, this is really hard to stabilize without altering the whole appearance of the piece. Because of course you can just dunk it in paralleloid, which is a material used to stabilize and keep everything together, but then you would ruin how it looks. So you have to balance out which materials you use or not and how much of it. And then there are really a few materials with which you have to be really careful of the environmental conditions, and you have to be in a really good mental space before using them. So it's the case with epoxy resin. If you want to pour transparent resin, because some fossils are lying on resin and sometimes there are cracks you want to fill and stuff.
Of course.
There are so many cases in which the resin can just not, not set. And when it does not catalyze and when it's just not drying, not hardening, it just leaves an incredible sticky mess that can get everywhere on the piece, and you could really ruin a fossil like that. It's the same if you want to make a silicone mold. Those are the best quality molds you can make, but if you don't mix your silicone well, if it's a bit too old, if you left the lid a bit open for a while, if it doesn't set, it's the same. You can completely ruin the piece because it would be also extremely sticky, gooey. It would be a bit like, I don't know, tar, spreading tar over something. That's the same effect as if you have silicone that's not setting. You can't take it off. And polyurethane foam also, like it's a dangerous material and sometimes the foam doesn't set. And yeah, so these materials, I think many preparators can relate, but before you're going to use them, you ask yourself, okay, am I relaxed? Is my mixing station well organized? How is the humidity in the room? Is it too cold or not? And then you take a good breath and then you do it in one shot. And then you don't touch it anymore and you let it do its thing and you pray a bit. Because sometimes you do it well and it goes wrong anyway. So yeah, those are the risks of the job when working on the pieces that sometimes are a bit out of control.
What would be like? It's gonna be a random question. The worst piece that somebody would could possibly bring to you to prepare.
This happens several times. I have had people sending me dinosaur teeth, but in a tiny plastic bag, and it was literal dust.
Just
hundreds of fragments, pure dust. And those people tell me, can you restore that tooth? Like, restore what? I cannot possibly bring back something that's literal dust. And some people have gotten really upset at me for sending me dust. And I would tell them hey, there are 10 fragments I can use, tops. Those 10 fragments I can glue back together and you have a bit of one side of the tooth. The rest has to be entirely faked if you want something that looks like a tooth. I don't think it's worth it. They would insist on me reconstructing a tooth. Sometimes it can look nice, like you make if you make it with a contrasting color, it can be like a black fake tooth and the real part that's on top. So it's a kind of a ghost of the thing. And that's what I offer in those cases. I'm like, okay, if you really insist on having something that's tooth-shaped, make it with a contrasting color, because otherwise it's horrible. And one of these guys, when they insisted on having something that matched the tooth color as good as possibly, and I did it, and then he got the piece back, and then he threw a tantrum because the tooth looked fake. It's like, that was you insisted on me doing it. I did it, but by now, this is the kind of jobs I would take as a young preparator because I was so desperate on building my portfolio. Now those people, I'm telling honestly, hey, this is a waste of my time. This is a waste of your money. Just buy another better fossil next time.
And it kind of destroys the tooth too, doesn't it? Because you put it in whatever thing and you can't really just take it off.
Yeah, no, you can never bring the things back, but if you have one square centimeter of enamel that you want to display, then there is also nothing else you can do. You can turn it into a piece of jewelry maybe, but and then from a scientific point of view, pieces that are a challenge to fix And this is a big problem in Germany mostly. Fossils that are altered with pyrite decay. So it's a iron mineral that's just turning into dust and very reactive to humidity changes. And sometimes the pyrite will just grow instead of soft parts. So as an example, in an ichthyosaur belly, you would have the space where the whole digestive tract was growing pyrite, and it will just grow, expand, and turn into dust. And so the bones that are lying on it can also turn into dust or just explode because of the pyrite pushing on it. And treating pyrite is a massive challenge. On small fossils, you can dunk them in a special solution and treat them to stabilize them and stop the process. But on big slabs, it's really hard, if not impossible to do. So you got to scrape it off as much as you can and then fill the gap with whatever material you have that could fill the space. And then you can try to just coat it to protect the piece from humidity, and then just recommend the people to store them in a place where the humidity is stable. But I got a colleague working in Switzerland who's establishing her brand new methods on pyrite stabilization. So she's going to give workshops in a while, and I'm just looking forward to it because pyrite is a really tricky thing to work on as a preparator.
That's got to be. Have you ever had it kind of just crumble like that? You just walked in and it was just done?
There are sadly many collections that house German specimens that have dust on the shelves of fossils that were never stabilized and were not in an environment where humidity was monitored in any way. And yeah, you have dust on the shelves. I've visited a museum collection last weekend, and they have a huge pyrite problem. And you will just open the box, you will have the label, and underneath it's dust. And this is good to go to the trash and should not be kept in collections because the pyrite becomes mobile and can affect other specimens as well.
Oh.
But I got the example that I was talking about earlier here. So this is an ichthyosaur skeleton, and there you have the pyrite that grew and pushed the ribs out. So you see the cracks there. And so here I got to remove the pyrite as much as I can. But when you see it, usually it's too late. If you see it here, it means that it's everywhere under the bones. So it's probably really poorly developed. And yeah, here you could see how it just falls apart. Yeah, so that's just dust. Yeah. So
that section, what would be the? So is that section just kind of like done for?
So here the bones are still okay. So what I will do is that I will cleanly cut. So that's a method we use in preparation sometimes when a place is hard to get to. If it's not a specimen that will be used for research, of course, you can cut cleanly with a diamond tool. You remove the affected section. So here I will remove the ribs. So then I can really clean the whole section underneath, remove as much as I can. I can soak then that section of ribs in the solution I told you about earlier, because I can't dunk the whole slab in it, but the section of ribs I can save. And then I will glue it back with resin. So yeah, that's and then coat the specimen with paraloid, which is a sort of stabilizing varnish.
That just also keeps stuff from getting on it.
Yeah. And also the thing is that the paraloid will keep the ribs attached to the rest. So even if we can't prevent the pyrite from keeping growing in the back of the skeleton, it keeps it in one piece. So if one day it has to detach, at least you can remove a whole chunk that stays stable, scrape off the pyrite, and then glue it back on top.
That actually probably makes at that point add hinges.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm realizing now I'm giving like so many detailed explanations about preparation. Maybe people are gonna be so bored by that.
Well, I hope the people that like preparation are getting their
Very
money.
nerdy talk.
So, within your personal experience, what has been the easiest thing you've worked on and like the hardest thing?
Dinosaur bones are the easiest. Most of them are preserved. Like they're massive. I'm not speaking about skull parts. Skull parts are tricky, but yeah, usually dinosaurs are preserved in matrix that are quite easy to deal with. Most of them are in clay or in sandstone. Some of them are in really hard stones that you have to work on with diamond tools because it's really hard. And there you have to take the big saws out. So it's really physical work, big work. But yeah, the bones can take a lot. So they are fine in the end. And stuff that's the hardest would be, so I will not say for me because those I don't deal with because I know that people will do it better than me. Trilobites as an example. It's an art to prepare trilobites, the ones that have the fancy eyes. Yeah, these are amazing. The preparation is super tricky. They have so many details. These insects, also shrimps, preparing them from scratch. You have to do this under binoculars. You have to do it with tiny needles. You have to be so precise, so careful. Some shrimps can be only prepared with under UV light because then you can see the what is it? The exoskeleton. It's transparent on some fossils, and you can see it if you are working in the dark under a UV light. And
working with invisible fossils.
Yeah, and those are things like when people ask me if I could do it, I'm like, there are people who are experts at it. Contact these people because they are masters at what they do. And so these are things that are out of my league. I'm more doing vertebrates because I'm confident with the methods I have and the ones I learned. But I think if I would want to prepare, invertebrates, I would have to get a whole course, like follow someone, shadow someone for a month or more to learn all the tips and tricks. So, yeah. And
I would just be curious on who discovered that UV light thing. They just like shined it on a shrimp fossil one day and was like, oh, there's a lot more to this shrimp than we expected. It's like,
but so many soft parts are UV reactive. It's like for the Archaeopteryx. If you would put it under UVs, you would see the feathers much better. There are many soft parts that appear under the UV lamp. But yeah, the first ones who did that, amazing. Like, good idea, really.
Someone really lucked out with that discovery.
Yeah. And it's that project I'm doing for the German Museum. Earlier, before we started the podcast, I told you would have to believe me when I'm saying there is a rib on the block. Actually, the rib is much more visible under a UV light. So I'm preparing this mostly in the dark. I turn off. I put an umbrella on top for extra darkness, and then I use the lamp, and I start the preparation like this.
The lamp is your only source of light.
Yeah, because everything is red on red on red, and under the lamp, the bone fragments look light blue. So you have a huge contrast. Then you can really see them well.
Is
Yeah.
that for all fossils, or is that just specific ones in general?
Most fossils are UV reactive in a way. So they will have a certain color. I will. You said you could edit. I will give you an example. Alors, you will see with the fish I showed you earlier. Up, taking out the umbrella.
An actual umbrella. Wow.
Yeah, to put everything in the dark. I don't know how the fish will react now that I started. Oh yeah. So it also helps. So UV light is really good to help spotting repairs and restorations in general, because the materials used will shine in another light. So, I don't know if you can see how shiny it is.
Yeah, it's
Maybe
definitely
at a distance.
like glowing differently. A lot, especially along the like outside, you can see a lot more.
So outside, what you can see is the glue that has been used to put the fish in another slab. But along the spine, you can see it's glowing orange, beige.
Yeah,
I don't know if you can see it.
Way different.
And so what is beige orange usually is partly soft, part preservation. So remnants of flesh that got preserved in another way. So yeah, that's how fossils react. Up. Removing the umbrella now. Up.
That's so you just have to sit
Yeah, as
there.
I said, you got to be scientific and creative.
Just sitting there under an umbrella, UV light, and a little scraping tool. That's gotta be.
I could use curtains, but those would be a fire hazard in my tiny lab, so I'm just using an umbrella instead.
Yeah, work around. Use the unorthodox.
Yeah, whatever works.
It works. It works. So, I guess what got you into paleontology and dinosaurs, and where? Why did you become what you are?
I never grew up. No. I think that's the truth for most paleo people in general, especially the dinosaur ones. For me, it was a funny development. So I grew up in the north of France, where we have a lot of Carboniferous deposits, so lots of plants, fossilized plant remains from long before the dinosaurs existed. And also some Devonian deposits, which are much older, for which we have fossilized corals. So that's just for the geological context of my area. No vertebrate material. The most we can get is just like pieces of insects, which is not vertebrates, but I mean animal-wise, not so much. So as a child, my family was living in the countryside, and very early on, I developed an interest for finding bones and looking for bones in the fields behind my grandma's house. Weird thing for a 5-year-old little girl, but I loved spending my days in the garden, in the fields, looking for bones, and I would bring them home, clean them, and organized them by shape and size. I was doing like comparative anatomy without knowing it. And then putting them in tiny bags in tiny boxes. And that's what I do as a job now, which is very convenient. Like little me is very happy every day. So I did that collection, but as for all things that children do, my parents thought it was just a phase. And I just didn't stop collecting bones. So one day my mother freaked out and she threw away my entire collection of bones, which is very traumatic. Like, can't imagine how much effort I had put in this collection. And it was actually a healthy behavior. I was not fascinated by death. I was just interested in the bones. So then I moved on to a collection of snail shells because I liked the diversity of patterns the shells could have, despite it was just like one animal and the size differences and stuff. So same process. I would look for the shells, organize them, clean them, and put them in boxes. But I didn't know that the dead snail is still in the very back of the shell. And so the collection ended up being very, very stinky after a while. And my mother threw it away as well. So I was kind of sad. I was devastated that my second collection was thrown away. And shortly after that, we had. So I think I was about like 6 when this happened, and I was collecting rocks a bit also, like pebbles and cute-looking stones. And one day, a friend of my parents came over and showed them a plant fossil. And my parents were like, "Whoa, that's so cool! That's so nice! It's nature preserved in stone." Oh, and I thought, wow, my parents like this thing. Is this something I could start collecting? And this friend told my parents, "Yeah, I found those fossils not so far. If you would like, we could go together and look for them." And that was my very first fossil hunting experience. And at the time, I was also discovering on TV those Walking with the Dinosaur shows, and
The new one's out too.
yeah, everything about paleontology in general. And to me, it was like, wow, those are remains of things that are not here anymore. But my parents don't find it creepy. Because to me, that was the whole point of it. It was remnants of something that was interesting to me. It was like, those bones, I wonder to which animal they belonged. This snail, why is it that color? I really wanted to sincerely understand what story there was before it remained like just a shell or a bone would remain. And yeah, seeing the validation from my parents, I started collecting fossils and start intensely watching all the shows, asking for all magazines that are related to that. And for the dinosaurs, we would go to the south of France for vacation, and there were lots of lizards. And as a child, they became my favorite animals. And so the day I realized there were gigantic lizards, now we know they are birds, but as a child, I was like, gigantic lizards preserved in stone. Yeah, it became my dream and hope to find a dinosaur fossil in the north, but I didn't know that I would not find them in Carboniferous or Devonian remains, like layers. But I kept looking for them. And yeah, so that's what. So yeah, that's what got me into it. And yeah, as I grew up, just like other people who got into it, I could read more about dinosaurs and get more interested in them because they're so cool animals. Honestly, I think we have to be brutally honest at times with our job as vertebrate paleontologists, especially when we work on dinosaurs. It's a dream of mine that I pursued, but I don't think in any way dinosaurs are useful. for the understanding of how the world works, how, okay, a part of evolution we can work on, we can understand a bit, but dinosaurs are not crucial for anything. It's just a dream that you got, a silly passion, a silly, very strong interest, and you keep this passion, and it's just fulfilling for yourself. It's just like, oh, those are cool animals. I want to work on them, and I like doing it. And the why, there is not an ulterior motive of I want to resolve the climate crisis or whatever. People who use that as a catchphrase makes no sense when they say we're saving the world. No, micropaleontologists do. Dinosaur experts don't. The only thing we can bring is opening the doors to people who want to get interested in paleontology, understanding extinct environments and animals. It's a nice way to get people into science. But yeah, so I would just admit that it was just a weird thought pattern that I had as a child that made me want to get into dinosaurs. And then I never asked myself the question again as I grew up. It was just like, dinosaurs are the goal for me. I will go there. Yeah. But I'm happy I did it. Like it's a nice experience. And so many people I meet are always like, oh, that's what I wanted to do as a child. That's amazing. And you see the sparkle in their eyes. And I'm like, yeah.
You're living like the fulfillment of so many people that they never took, like, it just didn't work out for them. It wasn't their step.
Yeah.
You get to live that fulfillment. I mean,
yeah. But I think it only works when you have just a devouring passion, or you're just a little bit neurospicy. So like you have a specific interest in paleo, and that's why you will give it all you got just to be sure you will be in paleo one day. It takes a lot of passion and hard work and sacrifices. So when people say, oh, I wanted to do it as a child and then I moved on, you're like, good for you, because paleo is so rough as a working environment that if you are not 100% dedicated to it, you would drop out very fast, like very early on. So yeah, that's the whole story. It's a weird thought pattern. Like I could watch. I come from a very conservative family, and scary movies were not allowed at home. And my parents considered that Jurassic Park was a scary movie. So first time I watched it, I was 16. So I can't say I'm one of those Jurassic Park kids. I found out about it really late in life.
You're in the other demographic, the Walking with Dinosaurs group.
Yeah. Like, but I'm lucky that they didn't consider that. That's creepy. Otherwise, I would not have found out about paleo. Like, but yeah, very nice educative show.
Very much so. I'm so glad they're making a new one and it's coming out. I mean,
yeah,
I got to figure out how and where to watch it. Just got to figure out how to get that, because it's acting funky over here for whatever reason. But
yeah,
different day.
yeah. But yeah, there's some shows like this. Like if you got a friends group who's into paleo, I'm pretty sure when this will be released in Bonn, we have a group of paleo people, and someone will bring the idea of like, hey, let's organize a watch party, and that's really nice.
That's certainly an idea. I know what I'm doing later this summer.
Yeah, no, but that's cool. Like you invite friends and then you have a good laugh. Like
then you enjoy it together. And I mean, the way Walking with Dinosaurs does it too, where it's also not just, for a lack of words, just like boring lecture knowledge bomb and it just hits you right in the head. They tell a story with it too, which is, it adds more spirit into it.
Yeah, but that's how good educational content works. It's through storytelling. If you're not telling a story and you're just bombarding people with facts, very little things will stick because they don't have a timeline, they don't have a main character in their head to like keep it all together it has to be bound with feelings for the knowledge to really stick. And I think it's how such shows get to educate people in a much more effective way than other scientific shows.
And I mean, Walking with Dinosaurs was kind of that first major one. There were some other ones, Dinosaur Revolution, Jurassic Fight Club. We don't talk about those. We sweep those under the rug and we just bring
Some
those
of
out
the
on a
things are
rainy
just
day for
pure
a big laugh.
entertainment, you know. It's like when people are in paleo, we have a very complicated relationship with Jurassic Park, Jurassic World, because the franchise has brought a lot of money into the field.
Very much. It's brought a lot of money and a lot of interest and a lot of people into the field.
Yeah. So first, before shitting on that, people like please acknowledge that. That's very important. But on the other hand, it caused a lot of misinformation because the media use that as a reference for everything they want to show people. So now you want to talk about a marine reptile, people will say the T-Rex of the sea, and you're like, it makes no sense. But for the journalists, somehow it's a big headline that people are going to click on, so that works. And that's the problem. It's just that these movies are just
they're entertainment.
a piece of it's entertainment. It's art. The only problem that there was is that their marketing is a bit blurry when it comes to the goals. And sometimes it goes a bit in the lane of like, this is a bit scientific. We worked with famous paleontologists, blah, blah, blah. So people will, the public will take it as relatable information. So when you have the fancy scientist who's like, oh, this one can spit ink, whatever, people are like, oh, that's how it was. Because they don't
do the research themselves.
Yeah, they don't have our standpoints. They did. Yeah, and also you don't want to do research after watching a piece of entertainment. You're just having fun. So the problem is just that it causes misinformation in that way, and some things that have been told in Jurassic Park 20 years ago, we are still struggling as scientists now to correct the wrong ideas.
Even with Jurassic Park, it is very unscientific at the end of the day, but for the time period, it really wasn't like that. I don't want to say far off because it was still pretty far off, but
no, but true. No, that's true. But paleontology is such a young science that at the time they worked with what they had, and at the time it was the latest discoveries that they put in it, and then a bit of it was fantasy, but that was like good. The only thing is just that it's hard to tell the public, hey, paleontology is such a young science that things change every other day. It's like now people ask me if I know. I'm sure that a 5-year-old kid would know more dinosaur names than I do, because I'm not keeping up with the new names, the new species. Because it's changing every other day. People want to have their own dinosaur named after them, named after their partner or whatever. And then the name is revoked 6 months later. And then you have 2 new species, and then someone will kill off one of them. And don't keep up with the names anymore. Such a young science.
It just keeps building, especially with the species thing. Because one of the projects that I worked on, I can figure out how to share this, was a dinosaur family tree.
Yeah.
Which
you shared it on your Instagram.
Has been a different level of stress when keeping up with species, because they're all so changing. Like some don't know where they go because it's one tooth.
Yeah.
That's a new level of stress.
And the problem is the people gatekeeping the information. So in all sciences, any experiment has to be reproducible and you have to leave the material available for others to check your hypothesis and check your results. Many people in the dinosaur field gatekeep the information and restrict the access to the fossils that they described as a new species. And it takes sometimes like 20 years, or sometimes it just never happens, to prove that they invented a new species with not enough reliable proofs that it's a new species. Most of the time, it's so not enough. One tooth is 99% of the time not enough. The dentition is so variable within a dinosaur jaw. You have so many teeth shapes in one jaw, and people always forget also about intraspecific variability. Like, okay, maybe this one had crooked teeth. and yeah, and we have this problem that, yeah, everyone is creating new species, but then they don't let others check if it's actually reasonable results or not. And you have those big ego fights and stuff. And then it's who will go to the media first, who will make the headlines. And yeah, I'm building a stupid bridge now with the dire wolf situation. Once it's in the media's hands, you can't do anything anymore with it. And that's the problem. We have a few famous figures in dinosaur paleontology who are directly going to the news, going to the media. They share their misinformation. Their stuff will get debunked in another paper, but that will never reach the public afterwards. And everyone will keep believing that guy for the next 20 years.
Or the other problem I find with scientific papers, they make them so difficult to read.
It's yes.
Borderline just like reading a paper in Latin.
Yes, there is not enough science communication and everyone is stuck in their bubble. Of course, you have to use the proper Latin terms to make sense and make very precise description that everyone can internationally understand. But there can be a way of simplifying it. And I think, yeah, people should communicate better on their papers. There is such an invisible wall between what happens in the research community and then the public. We just let them know what we don't care so much about, and then like crazy, intricate, detailed research and stuff, it remains so, oh, we are so important. It's so complicated topics. We can't explain it to the public. Yes, you can. You just have to take 2 minutes to think about how to share the information. But it never comes from scientists to public.
They always write it for scientists, for other scientists to read it, but it's like, okay, the vast majority of your like audience will probably end up being scientists, but that's besides the point. But like a marginal chunk of them will be just the public, and you're going to turn them away from ever reading papers.
Yeah.
Just simply because it's like, okay, well, I can't pronounce the first 12 words. I don't. I'm not going to sit here and struggle for the next hour trying to figure out what any of this means.
Yeah, as a student, I struggled so much during my bachelor's. So first, like, English was not my first language. So yeah, when you're not a native speaker, you have to learn another language. But once you're kind of fluent, that's okay. But you still have to Google every other word. And then how you understand the explanation is still unsure at times. You're like, I think I got it. Then you read another paper, you're like, no, I didn't get it anymore. And I think for about every new project I started, whether it was for my thesis or sometimes for stuff I'm working on, you have the paper, it's like 20 pages. It will take you like 1 week to decipher it, and it will highlight terms. And come across a word, and then 2 days later you have to check the definition again if you got it right or not. And yeah, it's so complicated. It's really, really complicated. And yeah, then you have the media who are willing to take on that. They try to translate that stuff, and then it comes out wrong, but it's too late. Yeah, but that's why like scientists should make science more accessible by themselves. They understand those complicated words, and if they understood them well, they should be able to simplify them to the audience, and they should take some of their time to share it directly with the audience. It's
I am. There's a small part of me that's convinced that some scientists do that just so they can feel super smart.
Yeah, it's a big ego thing.
They can kind of write whatever they want and get away with it.
Yes.
And then people just buy
a lot
it
of bullshitting
fact because they can't even comprehend what is being discussed to begin with.
Or they will have double entendre, and it's just like, depends on how you read it. You interpreted my paper like this, maybe it's the opposite. Who knows?
They're just always right because it's indecipherable.
Yeah. And then there is so much we could say about ethics when it comes to paper writing, and the ego comes into play so much more than needed. Like as an example, someone will drop a paper about a dinosaur that they've been working on for a while, and then their arch enemy will see that and will start directly working on the same topic to just debunk the paper, whether it's rightfully done or not. And
it's not even about writing the paper. It's just like, all right, I don't like you, therefore this paper is against you just because on the principle of I don't like you. And it's like,
and they won't even contact the person. Like, I think even for revision, if you want to get over a concept that was established 15 years ago, you are finding out about very contradictory results. I think the person who is finding those new results that are contradicting the previous ones should contact the person and say, hey, I found very contradictory things. Would you like to collab with me? And we write that paper together. So then they get to own up to their mistake, because it's just how science is. You make hypotheses, they're right, they're wrong. It's not about you. It's about what you find out in the end. But the ego of dinosaur paleontologists is so big that most of the times the people will not even ask, because they know that the person on the other hand will be like, what are you trying to ruin my research? I hate you now. No way I will co-sign this bullshit, instead of owning to their mistake and being like, this was science 15 years ago. Now we are updating the knowledge. I was wrong because we didn't have those new technologies. We didn't have this new knowledge. But no. And then cherry picking. People who will be set on a hypothesis before they write the paper, and they will try to find all the evidence supporting that hypothesis and not be ethical at all. And whatever is contradicting, they will not include in the paper, which is also so dishonest. And
of course, paleontology is such a fragmentary science, because it's like, okay, I can write a paper today and it could very well be correct, but then tomorrow you find a new fossil and it's just like, actually that proves it wrong now.
Like,
and so it's just forever changing. And that's why I think it would be interesting to, I don't know how you would even mandate this, but like, all right, it's like, okay, you have your theory, here's the evidence backing it, and then behind that, it's like, okay, well, here's the possible ways it could be debunked, or the possible ways that here are the problems that are written with it.
Yeah, and to me, a good written paper is when in the conclusions they say, those are our conclusions, but these and these points we are not sure about or deserve more extensive research. Those are ethically correct and honest papers, because being a good scientist is knowing when to tell, I don't know. You're not knowledge. You develop, you you are looking for the truth. You're trying to discover things, to prove things or disprove them, but you are not the knowledge. Like you are the one trying to make it work, and you should own it and say, I don't know when you don't know. Try to
That's
stop
why I
proving
always.
you're right every time.
It's so funny because everybody always looks towards like the scientists for the answer, but this like those are the first people that should be saying like, I don't know, let's go find out.
Yeah, yeah, but it's so rare to meet some of them who will reply that because of the ego problem. Once again, they will be like, "Oh, I have to know because I'm blah blah blah." Yeah, sure, but then you're spreading misinformation.
It's a lot more respectable to just be like, honestly, I don't even know what you're talking about, and I have
Yeah,
no idea what's going on right now. Than
I
to
have
just
to
like
Google it.
make
Just
up some answer.
yeah, yeah. No, so there is a lot to do, and I think this is a problem. Okay, in academia as a whole, it's quite widespread, but those ethical questions are sometimes much bigger in this tiny field of paleontology, because we have much bigger egos, much bigger media attention, and yeah, are mathematicians throwing a tantrum whenever one of their theorems has been thrown out of the window by a new person? No, they will give a Nobel Prize to the guy and be like, "Wow, you revolutionized mathematics! Congratulations!" Here, if you would like to, uh, a few paleontologists have been trying to bring up, like, hey, maybe the theropod dinosaur could have eaten a lot of carrion, uh, and could have been a scavenger because it's more convenient than hunting. And people are like, oh, are you talking about my favorite, most dangerous dinosaur ever? No, it would never eat leftover meat. And yeah, it's just like applying stuff we see in nature nowadays. If a predator is seeing a dead animal, he will take a bite. That's just like a reasonable idea. But it's not the sexiest idea out there. So we will have like all the crazy dino fans being like, oh, are you insulting my favorite dinosaur?
That
No.
immediately made me the T-Rex was it a scavenger or a hunter debate. I'm like, both? Question mark?
Yeah. Most carnivorous animals are like this. Like just like, and also like, yeah, it's just, yeah. And because of that, I think paleo is a young science and sometimes is advancing so much more slowly than other fields of research because people are just losing so much time defending their ideas that they were the first one to find out about. And what about you just let go and just for the good of science and research and put your ego aside? But wow, that's too much to ask for many of them.
Circling back to T-Rex, the whole nano Tyrannus and Tyrannosaurus debate. I
Yeah,
I found it
you
so
should
funny because
you
like
should ask this question to everyone you interview. Like, what's your take on it?
it was so funny because it's like, all right, nano Tyrannus or is it just juvenile T-Rex? And then just like out of the blue one day, we're like, all right, now we have T-Rex Macranus. Like, wait, that wasn't even on the table.
Yeah, but I think for that you should have Thomas Holtz, and you should tell him like before the podcast. Hey, by the way, I will ask you about this. So then, because I guess everyone is asking him about it, so then he knows if he's in the mood to talk about it. But he has such. That's why I really like this dinosaur paleontologist. I have never interacted personally with him, but he's so removed from his ego, from what you can see from the outside as a paleo person. Is so much into sharing the knowledge, sharing the science, like what he does on his YouTube channel, is just bringing the knowledge out there, not waiting for applause or anything. He's just sharing it for the good of everyone. And he's very rational about the paleontological evidence we have and what we don't have. And when he's bringing a hypothesis, he's like, this is the evidence I gathered. I may be wrong. Prove me wrong. I will be happy to know about it. And
I feel
He's
that
one of the only dinosaur guys who are famous and who does that.
Like the that just like phrase at the end should be the end of every paper. Like, I will happily be proven wrong if you can. Of course, if you can actually prove me wrong. Like, of course, if it's actually proven wrong, then I'll happily admit I was wrong.
Yeah. But then when the fossils say this and that's what they say. Then how you interpret it can change. But yeah, and so that's why I have a lot of respect for that man, because he has brought a lot to the field, and his approach to it is very ethical and non-toxic, like the approach of many other big figures on dinosaurs.
Very much so.
Who are, yeah, and those guys are problematic on many other points, and nobody is ever surprised about it. But yeah, it's I think he's an example to look up to research-wise for dinosaurs.
Thomas Holtz is just a name that
it's just positive vibes. People hear his name, they're like, "Oh yeah, what a nice guy!" Like,
just
yeah,
living life and having fun with dinosaurs.
Yeah, and people are like, "Oh yeah, nice. I read this thing he did, or I watched the video he made, or whatever. Or oh yeah, he was at the conference here or there. He was so sweet." And yeah. It's really like, sad to see. Is the only one I hear just very positive stuff from the get-go.
So anytime I see his name credited on like a book or whatever, because I was like walking through a bookstore. I saw it, and like on the back, it's like Thomas Holtz. I was just like, I'm reading this.
That must be good. Yeah, it's like the books written by Michael Benton. When it's signed by Benton, you know it's going to be really good, and you are going to learn a lot of very scientifically reliable knowledge.
He also puts it in a very easy to understand term.
Yeah, it's someone who's very qualified. Yeah. This book is one of the many, and it's like
it's reading it. I was like just reading it. It's very easy to understand. He puts it in a very simplistic term to where it's like,
and you got the point.
I don't have to Google translate this.
Yeah, it's you got the point, and the most important is that the people understand the information and not feeling stupid when reading a book. It's so insulting when you're reading a book and you feel stupid every other page. It's just like, oh, I'm still not smart enough.
I'm already admitting that I like don't know what I'm discussing, or like what I'm even like talking about by getting the book and reading the book. But to like read it, be done with it, and you're still like, I feel stupider now. Like,
it's always it should make you want to crave to look for more papers to read and stuff. Yeah.
I love Michael Benton.
And what's nice about Benton is that the book you just showed, so that's a book that's made for the broad audience. Anyone after high school could read it, I would say. But there are also books that are like the Bible for paleontologists. This one, everybody learned with it in paleo. Like, if you're getting into vertebrate paleontology, you have to get it. Vertebrate paleontology.
It just looks like a textbook.
This is a textbook. This is dense. This is intense. Like it's just like a lot of trees, and it's all of evolution from the beginning of the appearance of vertebrate animals, and all of the migrations and the appearance of specific bones and structures in the body, and all the hypotheses, like did the teeth appear before the scales or the scales before the teeth? Very complicated topics. But it's Benton. It's explained in a way that students in the field can understand. And at the end of each chapter or so, you will have like funny, tinier excerpts from supporting papers, and it will just talk like, okay, we are talking about penguins. Here we will talk about giant penguins, and just like a fun takeaway or like summing up a few papers. And at the end of each chapter, you have all the papers that are used to sum up the information. Yeah,
It's
and so nice. Everyone learned with that book.
it's literally he writes so casually. It's literally the
Mm-hmm.
second, like the first actual page. It's paragraph 3. It's like, so we went out for a beer and planned to look at more specimens. It's like, you're just being honest with
Yeah.
it. Like, I love that.
Yeah.
It connects you to them.
It's storytelling once again.
Any storytelling makes you relate to the character. You're like, oh, there's something relatable. That's why I enjoy like your journey.
Yeah, and you will remember what he discovered on that day because the fact he said he was having a beer made you laugh. And you're like, haha, this guy. It's like which Lyrex, a T-Rex that was found in Wyoming, was discovered accidentally when one of the people there went for a pee break and found a bone. And that's the thing, like you're like, yeah, okay, I know how that dinosaur was found. And yeah, because it's such a funny story.
And
then I remember it's named Lyrex.
But then you have the other end of the spectrum where it's just like, all right, now everything's larger, therefore that's what it's like. Like Goliath, that T-Rex. It's like, okay, well, it just made T-Rex significant, like noticeably bigger. All right, now it's famous. It's like, dang it. I know the founders of Scotty are probably a little.
Oh wow.
They're probably a little. It's like, oh, we no longer have the largest T-Rex.
Dang it.
That's always because everybody wants to find a new species, but it's not that common to find a new species like that. But
no.
Where you're looking.
In there is a lot of bullshit in dinosaur paleontology that and it's really sad. It's this lack of scientific rigor that's expected from other fields. I don't think you could get away with the bullshit some people are bringing up with dinosaurs if you would be mammal paleontologist, as an example. I don't think someone could bring a crazy hypothesis about beavers or raccoons or whatever. People would just, like, the peer review process would interrupt that. And I think the peer review in dinosaur research is weak, knowledge-wise. People are not relying enough on scientific evidence and, not being parsimonious enough.
Family tree that I did is purely hypothetical because I'm basing it off of a more modern paper where the sauropods are Saurosuchian. And
then it depends also on the criteria you take, where the splits happen and stuff. It's I
mean, even that entire argument is
where does it split and why?
The only one
in the beginning it's easy. It's the bone structures and all. And then at some point it's just like, oh yeah, the tooth is a bit going on the side.
Because even with theropods, you get into like Maniraptor forms and they're just like just turn into Ornithischian. You're like, even if you say it's Saurosuchian, it looks Ornithischian, and you're like,
okay, where do they fit? Yeah, where do they fit?
From this, but it's like evolved to look like Ornithischian. And so,
I think in those cases we also forget the divergent, convergent evolution.
And I'm
sometimes you're like, Yeah, sometimes it just goes back together, but maybe they were split originally. Maybe they were not on the same tree. Yeah.
Like the only one that I'm like I've looked at that I'm like, okay, this is a little goofy is the 1886 paper that I found from what is this? Classification of animals named Dinosauria.
Oh, wow.
I was just like reading it. And I'm like,
share it with me, please. I would like to read it. I'm sure, like, from how old it is, it should be really funny to read. Very entertaining.
or it's like stegosaur, ornithopods, theropods, and other just like it's like kind of all over the place. I'm like, but I mean, then you have the modern one where it's like, okay, well, which ones are Saurischian and which one are ornithopods, and then there's conflicting theories. I'm blanking on both of the people's names off of the top of my head, just because.
Oh no, yeah.
And I have.
We don't have enough papers also to synthesize everything. Like people who are reviewing stuff, but it's also a problem of funding. In dinosaurs, if you want money to do your research, you have to come up with a sexy idea. And nobody wants revision. Everyone wants new results and new species and new things to talk about, new fancy things to show. So that's also the problem.
Yeah, it doesn't really go anywhere because nobody has the proper means to discuss anything.
And about revision, I have a funny story. At the time, it was traumatizing for my husband, but in the end, it tells a lot about the egos of the old people in the field. He's a micropaleontologist, and so he was specialized on phytoplankton and also forams, other species of like tiny things that float in the ocean, for people who are not familiar with that. And one of his papers was about revising the taxonomy of a species of phytoplankton. And so the animal was like a ball with tiny hairs all around the ball. And the hairs would be like this, and then they would split like this, and then like this. And he had, I think, 36 species that he started with. And he decided to revise, like, just make a summary of all the papers that were written about this animal and check by himself all of the thin sections. And the thing is that at the end of his studies, he just found out that this animal is sensitive to the environment it lives in, and depending on how turbulent the water is or not, then the hairs would split more or less, but it would be still the same animal. And out of convenience, the 36 species had been described by micropaleontologists working for the petrol oil industry. Because for them, it mattered. The shape that the animal had was a good indicator or on where to find oil. And my husband, being a taxonomist and just wanting to check the animal in itself as a real species, killed 32 out of the 36 species that existed there. And it was a very scientific, very rational approach. And he did not do it to start beef with the oil people, in no way. He just wanted to make a revision of the taxonomy of this animal that was an absolute mess and say, like, by the way, it's just 4 species, not 36. Just clarifying things, making it simple for everyone. And so everyone stops using random names that don't make sense anymore.
Oh, yeah.
When going through the peer review process, his paper got almost completely blocked to go further because some of the reviewers were part of this old generation of oil industry micropaleontologists who are like, oh, you are insulting all the years and the decades of work that went into this, blah, 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 blah. And they took it personally, while his point was just to make a revision. He didn't even know if those people were still alive or not. Like,
It's
it
not
was
even
not
like
about insulting them or insulting their work. Just, okay. And the worst is that in his response, he still acknowledged, like, I get it that for you to look for oil, it made sense to use those morphotypes as indicators. And for your papers proving that there was oil here or there, that's still good for you. You still have those morphotypes. But now, for the species, it makes no sense. Can we just move on? Like, yeah. And in the end, like, he managed to get it out and stuff and make this massive revision. But the backlash he got was so brutal, so horrible. Like, I saw him in distress, like feeling so bad and so depressed about it. He was like, you can't imagine the violence of the stuff I got for my paper. And he had worked on it for like 2.5 years. And you're working for research, and those humans are taking it personally and trying to block you from coming out with the truth, because their egos are hurt.
Instead of for the betterment of science.
Yeah, slowing it down on purpose. And I think this is, it occurs too often in paleo.
You take the Zhu Xing approach, the Chinese paleontologist, and just do like 200 papers in 25 years.
Yeah.
Like, here's 5 papers a year. I don't care. Read it if you want.
So that's the thing. Like, now my husband is working in China, and the approach for publications is really different. It's more about like, okay, let out as much as you can because it looks good for the institutions. But in a way, so a lot of trash comes out of it. But
very much so.
Also, I think a lot of good as well, because you're sharing the research as it shows up in the very early stages. You just bring it out as a flow, and anyone can catch on that and build on it for their research.
It's
In
inevitable.
a way, it's not withholding the information for too long.
Not every paper is going to be world-altering new information, like completely redefining the shape of the entire science, but it's like a lot of them help with smaller things to piece other things that can lead to that, and people shut it down so fast because it's so like this weird ego trip, like you keep saying. It kills the science and ruins it for a lot of people.
Yeah, because those small papers matter a lot. So you see, like, the Chinese approach is very different, but they get a lot out. On the other hand, I've been in a lab where I came up with an idea that would have been like something really useful, and my supervisor would tell me, is it nature worthy? Is it revolutionizing stuff? And I'm like, no, it's not going to be in nature, but I think it's needed because there is a gap. There is a blind spot for us in our field, and it could help people. It would not be about the quotation index or anything. Like, it's just, I think researching on that could be useful for everyone. And he would be like, no, it's not worth a big paper, like a big publication, then give up about it. Don't lose your time on it. And I think in Europe, we have this approach. But because of that, there are many things we are not researching on purpose. And it's so dumb. And what my partner has been doing also with his work in China has been to like, he worked on a database for a long time with European and American records that he put all together for paleoclimatic research and things like this, reconstruction of coastlines. But there was a blind spot with Asia and China. And because all the papers are in Chinese, it's the same for the dinosaur research that's done in Russia. Most of the papers from a while ago were just in Russian, and nobody's taking the time to put them into a translator, while nowadays it's very accessible to do that. But it was so long ago. What can we learn from that? Crazy material. Everyone knows about all the fancy, all the diversity of Asian species of Psittacosaurus, and they don't know that there is a Siberian one that's clearly a different species. Like everyone can name all of the Asian ones, and you're like, yeah, but the Siberian one is like triple the size and with gigantic horns. It's really different, and people don't know about it. And so what my partner has been doing now has been to like integrate the Chinese research into his databases. And now this blind spot, the gap that there was in the research in the past, that would be, the diversity is dropping, or the repartition of those species stopped here. No, it was a gap, it was a blind spot. And now they know that, okay, there was not an interruption, there was no collapse of the diversity. Actually, the stuff migrated. I'm making it up as I go, but maybe it was in China the whole time and then it spread again in Europe, and it's putting the stuff together, taking the time to check the research from other countries, and implementing everything. So important.
I mean, yeah, that's because, like you say, you're filling in the gaps because I'm sure he's not done yet. So.
No, yeah.
You don't really have like an official paper to go on, but it really is. And then like just even within like conflicts of country really ruins.
Yeah. Yes.
Over here in America, it's like Chinese and Russian papers are not like, it's like, you're not supposed to be reading those. You should be reading the American.
Yeah.
Like, why? Why should I only read one half of the argument?
Yeah. It's pure political issues that should not have an impact on the research. And that's the thing. Like now, like from seeing from his work experience in China, you see that the paleontological scene in China is really open to international collaboration and working together. And with employing him as an example, they were really trying to build bridges, and they gave him the space to bring out papers that are revisions or compiling all the data, putting it all together, that some people would say, oh, it's not nature worthy or whatever. Yeah, no, but it's filling in a gap, and everyone will have a base to lie on and proper curves of diversity that they can rely on to start writing their papers.
This weird theory that it has, like this weird idea where it's like, all right, it has to be major. It has to be like completely
new, out there, crazy.
The entire thing. It's like, why though?
Yeah.
Why? That's not gonna. It's not going to happen. Not every paper is going to happen like that.
It's like on my work on the green bones from Natalie. What I am saying is that in the end we didn't know why precisely the celadonite formed and stayed stable in that one locality and not the others. And one of my supervisors was trying to force me to prove that there was a hot spot under the locality. A hot spot is like a piece of like a piece of the crust that will open up, let some magma out, and then there is a magmatic chamber under the location. There is no magmatic chamber. Like I looked through all geological maps, and I was like, here are the stratigraphic records. Here is the geological map of the area. I even studied the level of maturation of carbon. So then you can see how deep the carbon went into the earth to see like the compression and the heat and stuff. And I was like, none of it. And he was just like, leave that out. You have to find a hotspot. I can't invent a whole magmatic chamber and a site like where it doesn't exist for you to have a paper that looks crazy as fuck, like just being like, oh, those dinosaur bones turned green because they got really hot. Ha ha ha. No, stop. Like, okay, come on.
Looking at a geological map because continental crust is not recycled. Oceanic crust is. So
yeah,
magmatic chamber under continental crust would be pretty permanent.
yeah, that's the whole thing. Like
It would still be
there
here.
would be remnants of that. There would be rocks showing it. It was just a sedimentary context and nothing else. And it drove me crazy because we lost so much time in the beginning on my research because I would tell him, oh, I can make this and that experiment and that one and that one. And it was like, no, go back to the maps, check the magmatic chamber. And he sent me so many emails trying to prove me that, but it was not adding up. And I was like, okay, man, you're a good biologist, but
Not a good
geologist,
geologist.
I'm sorry, but my teachers before you were better than you. And I will doubt what you're telling me. And I will go do my silly little experiments. And in the end of my paper, I will probably say, we are not 100% aware of why it remains stable there. We know how it forms, but how, yeah.
The entry level geology class that I took debunks you. Like, debunks that theory. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, and that one teacher, like, is one of the examples of people who are like so set on their ideas and just like they're right and you can never contradict them. Like one day we were on an excursion and he picked up a piece of rock that he described as a sandstone. So he described it as a sandstone, and several of us were like, no, that's clay. And and the thing was that most of the students group, so we were on the master's level already, so quite advanced, but most of the people were biologists. And he was the only teacher, like the only person with authority who has some geological backgrounds. And him telling to master level people, this is a sandstone, when to the few geologists in the room, it was like, that's clay. And we dared contradicting him because like it's the basics of geology. You cannot misinform people who are around 30 years old or like between 24 and 30, teach them bullshit, and then they will build on that. You cannot do that. So we dared interrupting him to be like, that's clay, like that's a mudstone. And he started getting so mad at us for being like, how dare you contradicting me, blah, 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 blah. And me and another fellow student got so upset at him bullshitting around that we found two ways. Like, I took my water flask and I soaked the thing and I turned it into like a tiny ball of mud. And my friend took a bite in it and started chewing on it. And he was like, there are no grains in that stuff. And it was just field experience. And the two people were debunking him live, and he was still like not accepting that. It was like, I'm showing a wrong example, but all of the context here is sandstone and the mud is much more recent or whatever. And you're like, come on. It's again the example of earlier. Like, it would not have cost to just don't talk about it if you don't know. Stop cherry picking. Stop misinforming the people for your ego, or when people are calling you out on your mistake, just be like, oh yeah, you're right, and we move on to the next thing.
People come up with a hypothesis and then try to prove it right instead of trying to prove it.
Testing it. You're a scientist, you should test it. Put it to the test.
They're too busy trying to prove that they're like, okay, they're already acting under the bias that it's right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all right, so here's this idea, it's right. Therefore, you need to find stuff to prove it's right instead of because even a paper that is published about an experiment where they were wrong is still useful information.
Yes, and that's so useful.
You don't want to be wrong.
Yeah. Then that's missing the point of research and science as a whole.
Because like I mean, you just come up with a random hypothesis. Sauropods are mostly aquatic. that was a fun idea for a while. You look at the evidence, you're like, okay, well, the aquatic environment wouldn't quite suit them. Their XYZ reason doesn't make sense. Okay.
And someone will only pick, oh yeah, but they are gigantic and they have a long neck. Yeah.
Like you're like, all right, you proved yourself wrong. Now you know it's not this. That's
still
information.
Yeah, it is.
Don't go look in deep ocean biomes for old deep oceans for sauropods. You won't find them.
Yeah.
You'll find other anomalies, but we don't need to talk about those. Those are horrifying. But I mean, so I guess which time period is your favorite to kind of research and look into and deal with?
So I've thought about that question, and I would honestly say that I don't have a favorite one, because the topics that interest me research-wise would be material-based. Like, as my professional deformation as a preparator, I like the object in itself, and any object that is in my range of abilities to be able to, like, anything I could be able to research on, that I would be good enough to research on, I would be willing to describe, to work on. And so, like, any vertebrate is interesting, like no matter the time period, and invertebrates as well. Like, as an example, animals like the Anomalocaris or the Eurypterids, or like all those fancy big invertebrates are also interesting. So I don't have a favorite time period at all. It's everything in paleo is interesting. Like, all types of environments and all animals are beautiful.
Except for cockroaches, they can die.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but that's also the thing. Like, I think you can, during your research, you can decide to work on a time period, or you can decide to work on some type of material.
Yeah, like a specific, like, okay, well, since dinosaurs tend to be my specialty more, you're just like, all right, I'm really good with sauropods. Like, I know all about the sauropods.
Yeah. And then it will go
Certopsians, like
across several age. Yeah. That's the thing. Like, if you ask me, then with the Psittacosaur, it will be the Albian Aptian stages, but it's just a Psittacosaur. So it's very constricted. So, yeah.
Or you could, I mean, just be like, all right, I'll handle all of it and see what I can do with it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if there is anything that's of interest for me, I will be down for that. Like, I'm not, yeah.
And I mean,
no, go ahead.
I was going to ask, I mean, do you have any, like, you said that you had some field experience.
Yeah.
Do you have any fun stories from that? I mean,
so the field work in Russia was something. I was with an amazing team, and also with a girl who became one of my best friends when we spent time there, and we are still extremely close friends. It's a bit like, okay, going on field work in Europe is not so wild. Usually, like, if you go on a field trip with your teachers and stuff, you will sleep at a youth hostel, you will sleep at a hotel, or you will sleep in a fancy tent, and everything will be built before you show up. And yeah. So it's like luxury camping, like glamping. That's the usual French field experience, I would say. Or just day trips, like, you go with the car, come back on the evening, not a big business. So it was a real shock when doing it in Russia, because there you are packing all the food, all the stuff, the canoes, the field equipment to go for several weeks in the wild, 200 kilometers away from any source of life. Like, no, you can't go shopping. You can't take the car and go to the petrol station for a refill. If you run out of water, you don't have water anymore. Like, you have to be careful with the water jugs and everything. Like, there is one driver with a van that will come to bring us a restock every now and then, but he has to go back and forth and it takes days. So you have to be careful. And so every night you are cooking for yourself. And you don't have those fancy stoves and stuff. You start a fire and you will cook on the fire and stuff. And same for washing yourself. You will clean yourself in the river. And
back to the
you're living in the wild. And there are bears around, and it's like if you would go on a field trip to Yellowstone and you would camp in the middle, not on the camping lots, but in the middle of the forest in Yellowstone. That's similar to this. And so it's really a wild experience. You are pushing your limits a bit, like you're walking 20 to 30 kilometers a day. If not, you are rowing for 20 to 30 kilometers a day, changing locations quite often. So we could prospect in many areas, but sometimes we could stay there for only 2 hours because the next spot where we could possibly camp in a safe-ish way would be still 3 hours away. And we would have still to set camp and organize, cook, and then the morning after pack again and go. So this was part of the field experience that was like a crazy thing.
That isn't even a field experience. That's just like a wilderness exploration experience.
Yeah, like survival camp kind of. So
camping, fossils on the side.
Yeah, but so many fossil locations. So there we went along the river with the canoes, and it was digging through different levels from the Cretaceous, Jurassic, and also Quaternary deposits. So it's amazing. There is one location where on top of the cliff, you have mammoth bones, and at the bottom of it, you have Cretaceous levels with Psittacosaur. So you can just bring one team with recent experience and dinosaur stuff, and both of them can work on the same outcrop. That's incredible, I think.
A lot of places.
And yeah, the richness of the deposits, everything's so well preserved and nobody knows about it. And I think if I would have never been there, I would not have seen the diversity of the material they have. And so nice experiences are like, okay, you are digging on the Cretaceous levels. You are going to find vertebrates, teeth. And so I'm speaking about the dinosaurs, but we also did screen washing. And then you find so much material for turtles, lizards, fish, so many animals. And here you find the stegosaur tooth, and here you find, it's just so diverse, so rich. And there are also a few localities where there were plants in nodules, and so much to see, so many things to find.
I always think about places like that in like if they were discovered in the early stages of paleontology, what would have happened to the theories? And like, all right, well now we have mammoths and elephants being hunted by Tyrannosaurus. It's like, wait,
yes. Yeah, I think creationists would love that outcrop. They would say this cliff is proving that everything formed at the same time. Yeah. No, so the diversity of fossils, the one frustrating thing, well, luckily we didn't find an entire skeleton. It's just that those places are so remote that there is so little equipment you can bring with you because it has to be carried on those canoes.
By hand.
And yeah, and you're limited in time, and you have to decide what is worth bringing back or not for research, because you don't have the means to. Then it comes down to politics and finances or so, but you can't call a helicopter to come get the stuff if you would find something exciting or crazy. Yeah, but yeah, and there, I would say like the nicest finds were I found a small raptor claw, and this was my supervisor was a bit jealous. I hope Stepan, I hope you're not watching this, but I remember how jealous you were when I found it. No, it wasn't fair because he was shoveling the sediments out, a lot of it, and I was just there with my knife, just looking
Going through
in the
it.
layer because I didn't have a shovel. And I found it. And we found the titanosaurid vertebra with my friend, which was also, we found it on the last day that we were staying at that location. And we tried to jacket it quite quick, but then it rained overnight and the jacket was not set. So we flipped it anyways, and it arrived in pieces at the lab. It was so sad. But yeah, it was a new thing for this location. The Titanosaurid remains, so that was exciting. And then on one location where we went, it was a spot that was in an area where there was known to be a lot of tectonic movement. So they were not sure on whether or not the locality was Cretaceous or Jurassic. And it was unsure for the last 15 years. And we went there. It was like a crazy long drive. I think we drove like for 4 hours just to go to that site. I mean, through the forest and stuff. It was exhausting because the car is like. And then we arrived there, and 5 minutes in, I get a nodule out of the wall. I open it. I find a plant leaf, and I bring it to the teacher. And I never assume what I found. I'm just like, have a look at what it is, and you tell me what it is. Like at the time, I didn't know if it could be an insect, insect wing or a leaf. I had no knowledge about that. I was just like, look, I found this thing. And then they looked at me and they said, like, are you serious? Could you please pretend to look for a bit longer? Because it's been 15 years. We didn't know. And this is clearly a Jurassic plant species. You just ruined it for everyone. Let us look for a bit longer. So it was crazy exciting, but at the same time, everyone was like, we really drove 4 hours for you to find it within 5 minutes. That's not fun. There is no competition. It's unfair. And yeah. And when someone would make an interesting find on the field, the boss would open a bottle of cognac at night. And he opened a few on this excursion. That was like, yeah, the celebratory shots at night. Yeah.
You find that, you're just like, all right, well, back in the van.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, oh no, we have to drive back. Like, yeah. No, so it was an amazing experience. And it's also those field experiences that are so tough on the body that at some points it gets hard on the mind as well. Like, there was a period where it rained and it was really cold for about a week or so. And yeah, then the river is too cold for you to wash yourself properly. And
yeah,
it's like in The Sims, you know, the minus above your head, and your mental health starts dwindling down as you are becoming increasingly stinky. And yeah, this is hard on the mind.
People around you too.
Yeah, and then you have like swarms of mosquitoes also, where you are screen washing and you're getting bitten everywhere, and then your body becomes a gigantic blister. And in those moments, you're like, oh man, I hate it so much. Why am I doing this to myself? Why did I ever want to do it? And I think it's a common feeling for people going on the field when it's a bit tough. Like, oh, I hate it so much. Why am I doing this to myself? I hate it. I never want to do it again. Why did I do it? Why did people let me do it? And there, like on the evenings, you're looking at the sky, amazing sky, no light pollution whatsoever, shooting stars everywhere, enjoying the barbecue, a few drinks, funny stories, being scared that there could be a bear bathing in the river, but it's just the beavers that are jumping in the water. And then you come home and you're missing that so much. You're like, now I'm on my phone all the time. There was no phone connection 2 weeks ago. I was so at peace. At peace. You think you remember that. And yeah, and then you're looking forward to do it again and looking forward to go look for dinosaur remains again so much. Like, it's just, I will do it again. And next time I will complain less.
I'll be experienced next time. I'll know what to expect.
Yeah.
And then something new happens. And then you're like, okay.
Yeah. Crazy experiences. And then, so paleontology is, when on the field, it's 30% competence, 60% luck on whether you find the thing or not. And my friends hate me a bit with how lucky I am. I am insultingly lucky. It's a friend of mine has been to those localities in Germany. It's like quarries that you can visit and look for fossils in as a, how to say, like as a normal visitor. You just like write them and you can go with a supervisor there and dig and look for stuff for a day. And my friend has been going for 15 years maybe. And he's found parts of crocodiles, lots of ammonites, cephalopod remains and stuff. And he brought me to this locality with other friends twice. And the second time, I found an ichthyosaur skull.
It's like, oh.
Yeah, and
all right,
the worst is again, like I really, my intention was not to nag him at all. It's just I found this, and I wouldn't show you the slab because you can't see. You can see it when the slab is tilted. It has to be completely prepared, but you have the whole shape of the skull, and the tip of the snout was broken, so you see the teeth poking out. So it's clearly an ichthyosaur skull. But as I found it, I called my friend and I was like, I think I found something. Can you tell me what it is? Because I hate those people who scream what they found and then you're like, that's not gold, it's pyrite. You know, so I'm just like, hey, I think I found something. Can you come and tell me? And he comes to have a look and he's like, are you kidding me? And I could see the disgust on his face. You don't know what it is? And I'm like, is it what I think it is? He's like, yes, of course. How lucky can you be? I'm never bringing you here anymore. There's a ichthyosaur skull. And I was like, and at that moment, like, yeah, but when he voiced it, like, that's the moment when tears started running down my face. Like, I found an ichthyosaur skull. Yeah, I was so happy. And so the nice thing is that in Germany they have a really cool system. So it's industrial exploitations that happen to have fossils in them. And they have an agreement with the state. So there are days when it's open to researchers or the public to look for fossils with one worker that will supervise you and that will record what you found. And if it's ammonites, crinoids, belemnites, nobody cares. Like, it's just, unless if you would find something that's pathological, you know. So they let you go back home with it. You could bring back like hundreds of kilos. Nobody would care.
It's gotta be nice.
But yeah, it's super cool. Like, at first you go, you bring back a lot, and then the time after you're like, I got already some at home. Luxury. Luxury, and for free. You are going there for free. That's the best thing. And so here, when it's vertebrate stuff, you have to send pictures with a scale bar information to a representative of the state working at the local museum. And the worker that's there will report that you found this. You're not allowed to intervene on it. You're allowed to take it home temporarily, but they ask your address and contact information. And then the person from the museum will decide on whether or not the museum wants it back. And that decision is kind of definitive. And so as I wrote the email, I added like, okay, I think it's a Stenopterygius. And underneath I was like, my headphones are dead. Okay, wait. Can you hear me still?
I can still hear you.
Cool. So yeah, I sent the email with all the information, and I wrote, P.S. I'm a fossil preparator. It's a dream of mine of preparing a skull. It would be mine. It would be neat to be able to keep it. And I don't think it played a role at all. The response I got was like, thank you for the information. If you find out after prep that it is another species than Stenopterygius, please let us know. And then they would maybe want it back, and I'm open to it. I'm not about owning fossils, but owning an ichthyosaur skull is nice.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, really, like, yeah. So yeah, that's how I got to keep it, but I hope it's a Stenopterygius. If it's something else, I will have to give it back. And I will have worked for free, but that's okay. It's just, yeah.
It's also like the different aspect of it where it's like, if you ever show it off, you're like, that thing's real. And somebody's like, how do you know? It's like, I found it.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
Yeah.
And it adds like a different fact. It's like you're even more proud of it because you found it and you put it together and you.
It has so much value. So when you told me about the questions, you would tend to ask, as an example, like, oh, do you have fossils that you own that you would like to show? I told you earlier also that I don't have an extensive collection at all. The fossils I have at home like fit in all of them. They fit like in 3 moving boxes like this, not more than that. Also because I moved a lot, and when I was 16 years old, I had 200 kilos of rocks.
Yeah.
I decluttered a lot since then. But the fossils I have them first because it's stuff that was allowed to collect. And in Europe, there are not so many localities where you can legally take stuff. And I take that at heart to only do legal things. As a child, I probably took on places that were not allowed, but I'm keeping those tiny pieces of corals because it's my souvenirs as a child.
Yeah, you're a child, so they're not gonna.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like, my collection at home is just about the memories I made. Aside from my childhood when I was compulsively collecting, as I grew up, it was more about the nicest thing I found on that day with my friends. Then that's the one thing I'm gonna keep. I don't feel like keeping 50 kilos anymore every time I go somewhere. But this ichthyosaur skull is such a crazy find, and I think it's a once in a lifetime for many people. Unless if you go to this quarry every day for years, then you're likely to find 20 of them. But I'm never gonna find another one again, and I shared a bit, like I bragged a bit about it, and directly in my DMs I started having French people writing me like, hey, for how much would you sell it? Blah, blah, blah. I buy it unprepared. And I was like, no, you're going to buy it from me, flip it, sell it to a private collector. No. Like, and if you find out it's another species that's Stenopterygius, you're not going to share about it, and the museum will not get it back. I know it's safe in my custody. And I know what I'm going to do with it. Like, I will keep it, and one day I will donate it to a museum, and I collected it legally, and I will not sell it because it's also the agreement. Like, you go there for free, but you're not meant to sell what you find there. And I will stick to my words on it. But
yeah, it was a funny thing to say, like, oh, someone is offering you 5,000 euros. It's massive amount of money.
Yeah, like
Luckily,
stop.
I'm not on the streets, so I
You
was not
stop and
forced
think
to
about
say
it for a
yes.
second. You're like, 5,000.
But
That's a hefty sum. But you're like, no,
yeah, it
no,
is.
it's not worth
It
it.
is. And I'm
Not
not
worth
rich.
it.
By no means. I'm not rich at all. I'm my wage is like, how to say? It's like if education wise I had gotten just a bachelor, with what I make as a self-employed preparator. But in no way I could imagine myself selling that. The emotional value is too big. It's not. I can't. It's just. I really want to prepare that one. But then with work, I don't have time to prepare it. So I'm preparing every day.
Time. Just a little
Then I
bit.
look at it and I'm like, one day I will prepare you. I promise.
You just have like an ichthyosaur skull in like Matrix, just in the corner.
Yeah. He's in the corner there waiting. Like, but he's waited for a few millions of years, so he can wait a bit longer. But it hurts me so much, really. Like, I see it and I'm like, I have a skull that I could have just like here, nice. Yeah. But I also promised, like, to this friend, he's a friend who wants to have his own museum one day, and I will definitely just like when he has his museum would be the one I would donate the skull to. So then I told him, like, don't be too sad. One day it will end up in your collections.
If I don't open it and it turns out to be a different species, then we might have some different problems.
Yeah. No, but I've never been so much about owning the fossils. It's more understanding them. Having them in my hands once is enough. But this skull.
Yeah, it's kind of like a centerpiece kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's a good conversation starter.
Yeah. The day it will be prepared, maybe in 20 years. Who knows? That's the problem all preparators encounter. Like, having so much stuff, you can't even prepare your own things.
That's at least you're staying busy.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess, do you have any final thoughts, any final stories, final things before we start wrapping up?
To wrap it up, I think I'm happy that you asked me to join for a talk, and I would really like it to do it again on any specific topic that could be of interest to you. Because I think we need more spaces like this to casually speak about paleontology and exchange about the interesting parts of the field and the problematic ones. Because if we never address those topics, it's never gonna change.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, because it's, as we said, young science. There is so much work to do, so many new things to discover, and all of it can only work out if we work hand in hand all together. And we have to make so much more to get the information to the public and to everyone else, like going out of the researchers group and really directly share the information with the public. We should own the information and simplify it by ourselves, not waiting for the media to pick up the information, twist it in the way that they understand, because we miscommunicated at first, and then bringing it to the public in a wrong way. Yeah, I'm happy you gave me a space to talk as a preparator, because I'm a paleontologist, but I introduce myself often as a fossil preparator because that's what I do. And then people think, oh, so are you a paleontologist or not? As if being a preparator was a lower job, kind of. And
It's like the lesser, it's already like telling someone you're a paleontologist is always like, oh, whoa, what is that? And then like a fossil preparator on top of that is like, you have two titles now.
yeah, But the way people see it is more like if I just say I'm a fossil preparator, they're like, oh yeah, so it's just a technician job in a belittling way. Like they don't see it as an important part of it. But if preparators are not here, you're not gonna have fossils to describe, guys. Like,
well, people think
if
that
we don't do it, you don't have fossils.
Paleontologists are just the guys and girls that just go out and dig it up, and like that's the only paleontologist. In my opinion, anybody that deals with the fossil.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like there are so many shades of paleontologists in the field, so many specialties in the field. The paleontologist is not only the academician who looks a bit like Indiana Jones or whatever, like who just, is writing a few papers and then runs on the field and then comes back and then shoots a BBC documentary in between. Like, no, that's not the typical paleontologist.
The vast majority of us don't get a documentary.
But yeah, there are so many parts of collaboration and co-working in this process. So thank you for giving this visibility. And I had a really nice time chit-chatting about all these things that are interesting for you, for me.
And if you ever have a topic that you think is needed to be discussed, or you want to discuss, or you just need to bring up, I mean, shoot me a message.
Sure.
We can find a time.
That could be super nice. Yeah, that could be super cool.
Unlike corporate publishers, don't care if it's major or not.
That's amazing. Yeah, everything matters in the field. Yeah. That's really nice. Thank you a lot. And also, to have spoken about so many niche things, so many technical things. Maybe some of them are too complicated for the people. I don't know what's your audience in general. Like,
I mean,
who's the receiver of the information? If I said anything that's too complicated, I apologize. Feel free to ask questions. And thank you a lot for the really nice exchange we've had for a while now.
Of course. And I mean, if that's all we got for right now, then I guess I'll sign everything off.
Yeah.
It's always an honor having new people on, and even people.
Thank you a lot for having contacted me. And I wish you a nice end of the day and keep going with your podcast. That's a great idea. We need that.
I guess it's night for you now, so I guess you'll have a good night.
Thank you.
It's like, what, 6 for you now?
Yeah.
7?
Oh, 7. 7 already. I didn't see the time flying by.
You should go to bed. It's sleepy time.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was an honor having you on. I mean, as per always.
It was also an honor for me to exchange with you. Thank you a lot.
But if that's all, then everybody have a good afternoon, morning, evening, night, whenever you're watching this. Signing off. I'm your host, Eric Crawford. Remember, keep it prehistoric. Goodbye.
Bye.